Well, stay tuned to part 2. We're probably going to do some actual reloading for this firearm. To the point, formative, entertaining, and protecting the Second Amendment, welcome back to Elfster's Rifles and Reloading. In the reloading section for the 6.5 Grendel Palmetto State Armory Firearm Review Series. Now, in the next couple parts, I'm going to have to divide the reloading section into 2 total parts, part 2 and part 3. And that is for one main reason, which I'm sure most of you already know. I cannot show you how to make a finished cartridge from start to finish in one single video. So in part 2 here, I'm going to show you how I reload, not how you reload, but how I'm going to reload this 6.5 Grendel up to the sizing process and the second stage of washing the brass to get the lube off the brass. And part 3 will be the remainder of the reloading series up to seating the bullet right before we go out to the range to shoot those reloads. So enough of the BS, let's get this going. So I've accumulated enough factory fireform brass to reload 50 total rounds. I'm actually going to keep 7 total factory rounds for, measuring factory dimensions, head space, body width, you name it, just for reference purposes only. And this is all from Hornady Black 6.5 Grendel 123 grain ELD match factory ammunition. I've yet to receive my trimmer yet. That's still coming, but that's going to be in part 3 anyways. I have enough here to get us at least through part 2. And I had to also purchase a new shell plate. The shell plate number 1 that usually works for 308 and 6.5 Creedmoor does not work with the Grendel. I actually had to purchase the number 6 shell plate if you guys are using the Hornady Lock and Load AP press. Also got the Hornady 6.5 Grendel full-length resizing dies, especially for a semi-automatic. It's important that you full-length resize. And these are rather inexpensive. I typically would get, like retting dies. And if money is not an issue for you, I guess I would suggest getting retting dies. But I think for this series, this Hornady custom grade dies will work just fine. And I actually use the custom grade dies for my 223, and it's rather accurate. And I know some people don't like the Hornady dies. Everyone's got a different method to their madness. But I think this will work just fine, at least for this series. This also comes with a free box of 100 bullets, so I might actually hook up with the rebate on this in the future. So I also got the modified case so I can check how much bullet jump we have in this particular firearm from the resized brass. So that'd be rather interesting to find out, especially in part 3. But yeah, enough of the BS talk here. Let's move it over to the press, and we're gonna knock out these primers. Okay, so if you are not rocking the FW Arms auto centering decapper, well, you really should be. It's a little bit more than the Lee decapper, but this is 100% worth it. And I think you can get this for roughly about 50 bucks. I mean, the fact that this self-centers when you're decapping, and I actually have a video on this. I'll actually post this in the corner here if you want to check it out later after this video. I'm telling you, this thing is amazing for decapping your brass. There's really nothing else like it. And this is where a progressive brass really shines when it comes to decapping your brass. And the reason why you want to decap your brass right out of the gate is you want to pop that primer out. It'll give you more consistent readings while you're measuring your headspace. It'll also give you more consistent headspace bumps when you're resizing that brass. And also gives, at least in my scenario with using wet tumblers, is it gives your wet cleaning process more available chance to clean out those primer pockets, especially from the get-go, right out of the gate when you're trying to wash that brass good enough for the sizing process. And also, by popping those out and not popping out the primers during the sizing process and right out of the gate like this by using a decapper, it gives your stainless steel media more of a chance to clean out those primer pockets. Now, something you definitely don't want to miss when you're doing this is to make sure that the primers do not have a crimp. This factory Hornady black ammunition doesn't have a crimp on the primers. Typically, you'll see a crimp on the primers in military brass, such as Lake City brass. It's very common in such things as Lake City 7.62 by 51 and 5.56 Lake City brass. But something like this with factory ammunition, it's pretty rare to see a crimp, but once in a while you will see some factory ammunition that has a crimp on the brass. So it's very important to keep an eye out for that. And if it does, you might have to use something like this, Super 600 or some means of swaging that brass to remove the crimp or cutting out the crimp. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, and if you're new to the game, check out my reloading series. I'll show it on the side of the screen right here. You can go back to my playlist and check that out, especially in the section for swaging the brass and removing the crimp. It's really something that you need to keep an eye out on. And if it is crimped, you got to remove that crimp before you move to the next step of the reloading process. Okay, so on the first round of cleaning here, this is just to clean the body of the brass and to get the primer pockets marginally clean. And the reason why you need to do this is to make sure the brass is clean enough for the sizing process. The worst thing you want to do is try and size dirty brass. So right after those primers are popped out with the decapper, I'll put this in my Frankfurt Arsenal rotary tumbler. And you can see I ran my water to get the hottest water possible out of my tap. And you always want to clean with the hottest water possible. Hot water will clean the brass quicker and involves less time in the tumbler itself. So let me grab my funnel here. Now in the first round of cleaning, I only use Dawn detergent. On the second round of cleaning, which you'll eventually see here, I use Let Me Shine Plus Dawn, but on the first round of cleaning, I only use Dawn. And I get Dawn, don't get a generic brand. They're not the same, trust me. And you don't need to go hog wild crazy on this. It doesn't take much detergent. That is enough. Now in this first round of cleaning, it's just about cleaning the brass enough to be resized. You don't have to go hog wild crazy. And I usually just go about a half an hour to 45 minutes on the first round of cleaning.
Later.
So if you haven't seen any of my reloading videos before, huge fan of having a slop sink in your reloading room for the specific purpose. I also like to have a magnet at the bottom of my slop sink. I actually epoxied this into place. I didn't put a lot of epoxy on. I eventually plan on removing this when I sell the house, but enough just to keep it in the drain itself, just in case any stainless steel media pins happen to get past my strainer, which just consists of a popcorn bowl and a veggie strainer that I got from Walmart for roughly $2 a piece, so $4 total for separating my media. Really something simple, doesn't need to be complicated. So yeah, let's dump this first round of cleaning the brass into the strainer and separate out this media. Now in this first round of cleaning, it doesn't really matter if you use hot or cold water to rinse the brass or separating the pins. Personally, I just like to use hot. Hot water evaporates quicker. It's not until the second round of cleaning that I'll rinse and separate the media with cold water in order to keep the tarnishing down on the brass itself. So not bad for 45 minutes using stainless steel pin media wet cleaning. You know, they do have new media rather than using pins. It's more of like a pellet or a small granule rather than a pin. And something you need to really keep an eye out for, especially using 6.5 millimeter or even 6 millimeter bullets, or where the case mouth opening is 6.5 millimeters, is these pins, this particular type of media, which is a good reason why some people are switching over to more of a granular type stainless steel media cleaning, is these pins are pretty much the same width as a 6.5 millimeter bullet, and they're notorious for getting caught inside the case mouth openings of this 6.5 brass, whether it's Grendel or Creedmoor. It's something you really got to keep an eye out for. But at least for the first round of cleaning, this brass is clean enough for the sizing process. And by popping out those primers, it gave the stainless steel media cleaning more of an opportunity to clean the primer pockets. Now, before I throw this in my Lyman Cyclone case dryer, I just like to use a towel hammock method to marginally get this dry. So what I'll do is I'll just do something like this. Just enough to get the brass marginally dry so it's not sopping wet in your dehydrator, or in this case, the Lyman Cyclone case dryer. Now I don't need all these trays. I'm probably only going to use 2. Now this will probably only take a half hour to 45 minutes, to be honest with you, but just to be on the safe side, and I'm in no rush, I'm going to set it a little less than an hour.
A few moments later.
Okay, so it's been about 45 minutes. I think this should be good to go. Always want to double check, make sure your brass is bone dry. That's a good way to check, is just do this on the palm. If you see any water spots, it's not dry. So you got to put back on the dehydrator, check out the primer pockets, and they are bone dry, looking good. All right, let's get this annealed. So the next step in this process is annealing the brass. Personally, I like to nail my brass every time I reload. It really doesn't take that long. Now, I'm not going to show you exactly how to use the annealies, how to set it up, how to get the flame just right, and the timer set just right. I actually have an entire video series on my playlist. And if you want to check that out, go to my playlist section. You'll see that video series. Enough of that. Let's get this going. I already got the flame, or the temperature of the flame, and the timer set just right for this brass, and I just annealed 2 pieces of brass. Personally, I like to use the glow method and not using Tempolac, but everyone's got a different method to their madness. So I just annealed 2 pieces just to make sure this is set up properly. So let's get the rest of this brass in the hopper. And by the way, this is my Elfster's trapdoor mod for the annealies, and if you want to learn how to make this, this is also in that playlist. Now, I noticed while I was loading up this hopper that two of these pieces has stuck pins in it. And it's a classic example of what I was talking about before. So I'm just going to push these out. All right, let's pull this trapdoor mod and get this brass annealed. And it really is that easy. And I had to use the small anneal these wheels to anneal the 6.5 Grendel. So keep that in mind. And like I said before, if you're curious on how to anneal, especially how to use the annealees, check out that playlist area on my channel. Now, first things first, always test your calipers. Make sure that the battery's fresh on them and they're reading correctly. Zero out the calipers. I have this one piece of brass. If you've watched my video series before, you've probably seen this piece of brass before. I know for a fact that this piece of 223 brass is exactly 1.750 inches long. Calipers are zeroed out. So we're going to double check, make sure the calipers are reading correctly. And it is right at 1.750. So we are good there. Now, before I lube and size this brass, I just want a quick skim over headspace. I'm not going to dive ultra deep into this. That's what my reloading series is for in my playlist area. But I just want to give you guys an idea of what's going on with the 6.5 Grendel. Now, first and foremost, I double checked Hornady's website, and they recommend the B.350 insert for their bump gauges for 6.5 Grendel. So I got that installed. I noticed on their sizing chart, they actually don't show it. So I actually had to write that in for Grendel on the 0.350 for future reference. Now, for me personally, I like to keep a few pieces of factory ammunition laying around. I like to get somewhat of an idea of where this fire form started at. And I'm going to pick out three miscellaneous pieces here. And this is 1.2085,
1.209, and 1.2085. So we're just going to say 1.209.
let's write that down. Now, while I'm checking out headspace, I'm going to also check out the headspace of my modified case. I'm just curious of what the headspace is on this. And that is coming in exactly at 1.209, exactly the same as that factory ammunition. So that's good to know. So I picked out 5 pieces of miscellaneous fireform brass here, and let's check out the fireform headspace and see what we got.
So 1.2165. So we're just going to say 217. I'll try my best to do this with the camera in front of me. So 1.217. So I'll set that piece off to the side here. Same deal here, 217. You can see this is all consistently expanding to the chamber of 217. That one's 2175.
Now the brass will spring back just a little bit from true fire form. It's got to, otherwise it will stick in the chamber. Now you can see this one is 216. Now, something you really want to keep an eye on is beat up bases of the brass. If you get ejector marks on the base of the brass, that can give you false readings. But I tell you, this brass looks really, really clean. It looks spectacular for reloading. So I am going to say all of these are pretty much fireform headspace at 1.217. Now typically for me, when it comes to semi-automatics, I like to bump my headspace back from fireform 0.003 to 0.004. You know, it's next to impossible to get exactly perfect, but I try to get it within that range. Well, if our fireform headspace, at least for my chamber and not your chamber, keep that in mind, I am going to bump my headspace back to 1.213 to 1.214, somewhere in that range. And that's going to give me a bumped headspace from fire formed of 0.003 to 0.004. Now keep in mind, these bump gauges don't give you the exact headspace reading. All these bump gauges do is tell you how much you're bumping the headspace back. You know, if you were to go out and buy the exact same set of calipers, buy the exact same headspace bump gauges and anvil, and I was to give you one of these pieces of brass, it's not, and most likely, going to be exactly 1.217. It could be a little off. It could be a little bit above or a little bit below. It's not giving you an exact headspace reading. All it's telling you is that you are exactly bumping that brass back from fire form, and that is it. So what is all of this telling me? Well, it's telling me that PSA, they're giving not an overly exaggerated headspace on their chamber. I think it's rather reasonable to make sure that a wide array of factory ammunition will function in this firearm. I mean, the factory headspace started out at 1.209 and had to expand clear up to 1.217, most likely 218 as it sprang back just a little bit in order to get ejected. So that's telling me that this brass headspace had to grow damn near, what, we're talking 8 thousandths of an inch in order to seal off in that chamber. And I would say that is really reasonable. And I'm sure they do that for a wide array of factory ammunition, because not all factory ammunition has the exact same headspace. That's something to keep in mind. And we are going to bump this resize headspace back to 1.213 to 1.214. That will be roughly 4 thousandths of an inch above factory headspace. And that's really important for a semi-automatic. You know, with a bolt action, you can get away with a 1 thousandth to 2 thousandths of an inch bump from fire formed. And some people don't do any bump at all. They just neck size only for a bolt action. But when it comes to semi-automatic, you need to have a little bit more generous headspace. And if you want to dive in this a little bit further, like I said, check out that reloading playlist. So to keep somewhat of an information card here for our reloads, being that this was once fired brass from new, I got once fired 6.5 Grendel Hornady brass, and we're going to go for a target headspace of 1.213 to 1.214. So the name of the game is, when it comes to precision reloads like this, you're trying to get the brass to seal off in the chamber as quick as possible. The least amount of gases escaping from the chamber, the more consistent velocities you're going to have. Rather than your factory reloads that have 8 to 9 thousandths of an inch to expand in order to seal off in the chamber, your newly resized once fire brass from Fireform only needs to expand 3 to 4 thousandths of an inch. I know that doesn't seem a lot, but when brass is expanding and gas is escaping, when it comes to precision reloads, it means everything. Now before we lube and size this brass, I can't stress it enough, especially being that these are new dies, you need to clean them rigorously, inside and out. Not only your sizing die, but especially your seating die if you want consistent seating results, and especially consistent headspace bumps. Now, I personally like to use non-chlorinated brake cleaner to initially clean the dies inside and out, and then I'll follow up inside and out with Hornady one-shot dry lube. Being that I'm going to use these dies right away, I actually sprayed them out with compressed air. But if you want consistent results with your new dies, you got to make sure you clean them first. Now, before we size, first things first, don't forget to lube your brass. If you don't, you're going to learn how to use a stuck case removal tool, and trust me, you do not want to do that. The way I like to quickly lube my brass is I'll put just the smallest amount of Imperial case wax, and if you're not rocking Imperial case wax, in my opinion, you're not doing it right. but I'll put the smallest amount in the palm of my hand. I'll spray that down with some Hornady one-shot case lube right in the palm of my hand. I'll spray just a little bit on the brass. I don't go to town on it. And I work that brass with my hand. Spray just a little bit more. And by doing so, you'll get an even coating of this spray lube with a little bit of Imperial case wax mixed in. And by doing so, you'll get a consistent headspace bump. Now, don't go crazy doing this. You can't put too much lube on your cases. By doing so, you can get what's called hydraulic dimpling, where you get too much lube on your cases and that lube has to go somewhere. And usually what will happen, it will dimple or dent the side of the body or the neck. And when you start seeing that, that means you got too much lube on your cases. Now my goal here is not to show you how to set up your die in your press. That's what your directions are for, especially when all presses and dies are different. So read those directions. My only goal here is to show you how I'm going to bump this brass back for this target headspace. Now I'm just going to grab one piece of brass here, and we are at that 217. And we're going to bump this back to that target headspace of 213 to 214. All right, especially being that this is a new die, we need to condition this die with some Imperial case wax. And what I usually like to do is on this first piece of brass, I like to get the most minute amount of Imperial's case wax on my finger, rub my fingers like this, and rub a consistent amount on the outside of that first piece. I also get a little bit on a Q-tip and go on the inside of the case mouth. Now, this piece of fire form is at 217, like we talked about previously, and we need to bump this back to that 213 to 214. So let's start the resizing process here, and we're going to see if it bumps back this shoulder. So we are at 217. Now, if you don't bump that shoulder back, there's a good chance that the headspace might grow, and that's exactly what happened. We haven't bumped the brass back. It grew just a little bit. So we're going to adjust this die down until we start to see that headspace start to move. And you can see that the headspace is starting to move now, so it's 216. So we're going to keep on going until we achieve that target headspace of 213 to 214. So we are almost there, 215. So once we reach that target headspace, we can lock down this nut. And we are there, 214 to 2135. So we are right in the middle of those two numbers. I would say that is perfect. Now I'm not going to bore you with all 50 pieces here. So let me size up these 50 pieces and I'll get back to you in a little bit here. And once you start sizing, make sure you put your pieces in your tray so they don't tip over and dent the case mouth openings. Then, at least for me, when I'm setting up a die for the first time, after I get about 4 or 5 pieces of brass through this die, and I can verify that it's getting a consistent headspace bump like that, you know, right on the nuts there, 2135. I put in my next piece of brass. And I raise that ram. Just as it bottoms out, I let go and I lock that nut down. Now that die is set for that target headspace and that particular firearm. And it is right at 2135. Now, if you get a piece of brass that has a slightly dented case mouth opening, it's not to worry. It could be even a little more dented than that. And when you size this piece of brass, now this is fire formed, 2165, pretty much 217. It should resize down to 2135. Which it is right there. And I tell you, this die, I've checked every single one of these pieces so far, and it is nuts on 2135. This is a pretty consistent die. I'm pretty happy with it so far. But you can see that that case mouth opening is now perfectly round. Now, about roughly every 20th piece, I'll recondition my die. Now, I won't go hog wild crazy. I'm talking the smallest amount of imperial wax on my finger. And I'm going to recover another piece about every 20th piece. I'm going to redo the inside of the case mouth opening because as I proceed through the sizing process, that the imperial case wax and the lube in general inside this conditioned die starts to wear out a little bit. So and right there, 2135, man. Every single piece, I'm telling you, I've checked them all. They are right at 2135. Now, the name of the game for getting consistent headspace bumps is a consistent amount of lube on your brass, making sure you condition that die, and the real key is consistently running your handle and your ram. Now, with this particular press, I don't slam it down. I go nice and consistent, nice and slow all the way until it bottoms out on the overcam. I stop. You can see I'm not touching it, and then I back it off. We'll check out the headspace on this, and it is right there at that 2135. I'm super pleased with this die so far. But yeah, when it comes to a consistent headspace bump, that's what it's all about. Now, I can't stress this enough. Once you get past the sizing process, make sure your brass stays in trays like this. You don't want them to tip over and dent your case mouth opening, especially after they've been trimmed. What will happen if you dent the case mouth opening and try to seat that bullet? It's going to shave the copper off of that bullet, and I guarantee that's going to be one of your flyers. Now, at least for me, when I get to this point, I like to put a little bit of water in here. So I make sure I dump my brass into water and not dry pins, especially brass on brass denting case mouth openings. I want to make sure that that brass falls into water. I'm going to put a little bit of Dawn in there, not too much. It doesn't take a lot. This stuff is highly concentrated. And on this round, we are going to add about a teaspoon of Lemmy Shine to get that brass nice and clean. And that's about it. Now, rather than just dumping these in, I'm going to carefully put these in by hand. Fill this up with some more hot water. And for the second round of cleaning, I like to do 1 full hour.
Later.
Now, on the second round of cleaning your brass, I like to rinse with cold water in order to keep the tarnishing down as much as possible. Now, you're going to notice here, when I show you here on many of these pieces, especially after the brass has been resized, the case mouth opening is obviously going to get put back into spec, and you're going to get even more of those pins stuck in the case mouth openings on these 6.5 flavor bullets. So that's why I would advise, if you were to get stainless steel media for the first time, get the pellets, not the pins. I'm probably going to switch over here soon, and that way I don't have to worry about this issue. It's not a huge issue, it's just more of a pain in the butt to knock these back out. But enough of that talk. Let's get this back in the Lyman Cyclone case dryer. And if you're curious where or how I made this funnel, it's pretty easy. Matter of fact, I even have a video that shows how to make it. Just check out my video playlist. Well, that concludes part 2 of the PSA 6.5 Grendel firearm review series. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and I'll see you in the next part.